it's Stephen here for the Idiot Quilter, and today I want to show you how to make some cheap but colorful placement mats using placemats that come from the dollar store. And this is what I have right here. These are, I think they were $1.50 a piece, and it's just a plain red with sort of a damask looking poinsettia in the background. But I put them on my embroidery machine, and this is what I've created. So basically, I fancied it up. These are two colors of snowflakes, just a very simple design, and around the edges I have also embroidered a border. Can you see that a little closer up there around the edges? Yeah, so I'm making 12 of these, and I'm about to finish my last one, and I'm going to show you how I do that, but I'll just show you some others that I have here. So this one's in yellows and a mixture of yellows. Same with this one. I made about 2 of each color combination. Then I have a couple that are in reds. It's a little bit more subtle. One red is a little darker than the other. I haven't done the borders yet. I have to do those after I embroider the next one. And there's one in greens, and then some blue, and then another shade of blue. So in total, I have 12 placemats once I have these all finished, and I'm going to put these on my table at Christmas when we have people over for dinner, and I think it just adds a little fun to your table, and it's fairly economical to do. That is, if you have an embroidery machine. So how do I do this? Well, I'm using one of my larger hoops in my embroidery machine, as you can see, and I've already have my tearaway stabilizer. You need the stabilizer in order to anchor the placemat into the frame. We're going to be floating the placemat on top of this, and this is what I mean. We're just going to center it in the inner hoop and just float it. And when the first stitches go into it, it will anchor it to that stabilizer, and then it'll stay in place. I've already loaded up on my embroidery machine the pattern that I'm going to use, and I've got my thread loaded. So I'm just going to cut over to the embroidery machine and let you see how this process begins. Okay, so I now have my hoop all set up, and I've got my placemat, I keep saying placement mat, I mean placemat, floating on top of my hook. Okay, rented lips. Now I have my placemat floating on top of my embroidery hoop, and underneath that I have my tearaway stabilizer. I've got my pattern loaded into my machine, and everything is threaded and ready to go, so all I need to do is push the start button. Now this is probably going to get noisy, and there may be a little bit of vibration because I have my camera set right up on my little extended platform table next to the embroidery machine, so you can see what this looks like. So I'm only going to let this play for a few seconds because you'll get the point from that, and then I'll be back when this is done. So as you can see, we're progressing along quite nicely here. We're getting close to the end. It has one more snowflake after this one to do, and then I'll show you what happens next. Okay, so the machine has all finished the embroidering, and now I'm going to remove it from the hoop, and to do that I just pop up this part, and we'll just stuff that down here. Let's put this out of our way. Now, of course, we still have our stabilizer attached to this, but this is tearaway stabilizer, so we just flip it over and we pull it off. Now, this may seem like a waste because there's so much left over, but not really. What I do is I trim that down and I can use that for smaller projects. A lot of times I just float the stabilizer underneath the hoop without even hooping it, and once the initial stitches go into your design, it holds it all together. So that way you get maximum value out of your stabilizer, because stabilizer is not particularly cheap. Now, if I wanted to take the time, and I could do this, I could go through and peel all that off in between. But you want to know something? I'm not worried about that, because it really isn't the side anybody's going to be looking at. And if they do look at it, so what? So now that I've got the design all done on the placemat, now what I want to do is my embroidery around here. Now, there's already kind of a line I can follow, because there's a stitch line here that holds these two pieces together, and I'm going to embroider right along that line as my guide. Now this one, I just noticed, I didn't have it quite centered. It's a little bit off, but you want to know something? Once it's on a table, there's plates on top of it. Who's going to really notice? And if they notice, I don't care. It's still pretty. So I'm going to set up my embroidery machine now for doing the decorative stitch around the outside of this, and I'll come back and show you that process in a moment. Okay, so I've set up my machine now to do my decorative stitching around the border of my placemats. Now, before I did this, I cleaned my machine. When you're doing embroidery, and doing embroidery for the length of time that I've been doing it with this project, you build up dust and fuzz in your bobbin holder down here below. So that needs to be thoroughly cleaned out, or that can cause you some problems. I also discovered something very interesting. I was using Deco Bob, which is a pre-wound bobbin that you use when you embroider. And I left that in to use with the decorative stitch, and it wasn't working properly. I'll show you what I mean. This top row is the decorative stitch I'm going to use around the border of the placemats. However, I was experimenting just to make sure it was set up properly, and you can see down here I was only getting a partial image. I wasn't getting the whole image that you see here. Reason being is, well, first of all, I re-threaded the machine, and that didn't seem to solve the problem. But when I replaced the Deco Bob with a regular sewing thread in the bobbin, I didn't have any problems. So that's something for future consideration. I'm not sure what the problem was. Possibly that because maybe the Deco Bob thread's a little thinner than regular thread, I think. It may not have had the right tension. Anyways, I think I have that problem solved. So I'm going to show you this for just a few seconds, and then I'll come back when I have it done. Okay, so I finished my border all the way around, as you can see, and although these aren't absolutely perfect, let's remember, these came from the dollar store. They were cheap, $1.50 for each one of these placemats, plus my time and effort and thread to make them something a little bit more special than just a dollar store placemat. Now, will these wash? Not sure. They may fall apart. I don't know how they'll wash, but you know, I'm only using them on Christmas Day for dinner, and we'll see what happens. If some of them get a little soiled and I can't get the stain out, I'll just throw it away and save the ones that didn't get soiled. and next year I'll add to the collection or whatever, or it could be a totally different project next year. So I'm Stephen for the Idiot Quilter, and I hope I've shown you how you can make decorative placemats with your embroidery machine using dollar store materials. See you soon. Bye-bye.